welcome everybody to our webinar today. We have a really nice mix of familiar faces and some new names with us today. So we really hope that everybody's going to enjoy the session together. Oops, sorry, somebody's just admitting. So the contents, we're going to obviously not running an extremely long session today. We have 3 takeaways with some top tips to share with you. We're going to spend the bulk of the time with Youmna and Rob on discussion, talking about their experiences of asset mining. And we're going to keep 5 minutes back at the end for some questions and answers. So we'll do that through the chat. We'll stop the share at that point, and we'll give you guys an opportunity to ask some questions as well. Okay, so 3 key takeaways that we're going to cover off today. We're going to start with a definition. So what do we mean by asset mining? What do the words mean and how do we do it? Then we're going to move into why mine for assets. So why is it an important thing to do? And then we're going to finish off with 3 top tips for you guys as we go through. So the first piece, as we get into our 3 takeaways, is to start with the definition. Can I just check you guys can see this? Because I'm going to move the zooms that way. Can everybody see? Okay, brilliant. So what is it? What do we mean by asset mining? So every business that we have worked with, whether they're big or small, is sitting on riches or assets that we call, and they're frequently lying dormant or underused. So it's kind of either sitting in cupboards or sitting in people's heads. So it's information that isn't immediately accessible. They're frequently knowledge-based. So if people are starting to develop a new product or a new service, these innovation assets can be based on the target user understanding. So what do you understand about your user group? They could be knowledge of your product or service. So what is your point of difference or your technology? And it's also knowledge of your market and or competitor trends. So this is kind of knowledge that's loose within the organization. Sometimes it's written down, sometimes it's not, but it's not always immediately accessible. And we just wanted to touch on kind of why assets are frequently underused. And we see this happening consistently across many of our different clients because the barriers are quite significant. So asset mining requires you to look in the rear view mirror, which from an innovation point of view, everyone's kind of a bit more forward facing. So asset mining requires you to take a time out or a pause and say, okay, what do we know? What do we learn from the last launch? What do we learn from the last venture that we've worked with? It can also feel a bit less exciting. Generating new data can feel more exciting, more relevant, a bit sexier, but actually mining past data generates those ideas that are incredibly important. And also it can feel a little bit less relevant. So obviously, as we're kind of going through COVID, kind of we're hearing clients saying, crikey, is everything pre-COVID now redundant? You know, is everything I knew about my target user, everything I knew about my technology now not relevant anymore? And we don't feel that that's the case. And also management frequently support new data. So we often see management kind of asking for that new data. And as we all know, what gets measured gets done. So if management aren't asking folks to kind of go back and asset mine, then frequently it won't become part of the natural rhythm of a project. So we have 3 big reasons why we think mining for assets is really, really important. The first thing is return on past investment. So we know tacit knowledge is the result of prior money that your business has spent. So whether it's past research, development work, past product launches, and then by mining that historical work, you're making that past budget work even harder for you. So you can kind of dig in and figure out what you learned last time. The other thing, it gives you a massive return on future investment as well, because once you've figured out what you already know, if you're going to commission a new study, a new piece of research, you can focus that in on the gap. So what's the bit that's missing? So it just means that you're not learning the same stuff again and again. I think we've all run studies where you think, actually, we knew that before. We probably didn't need to go back and relearn that. So that it really fills in on that future investment. And then the other piece we find as well is asset mining is a massive return on people investment. So time set aside to dig deep, have conversations with the team, with a questioning approach allows people to kind of unlock what's going on in their minds, and it kind of smooths the way. We had a case yesterday with a client and somebody said to us afterwards, it was like therapy, you know, kind of going back through all of these different projects and peeling back the onion and understanding what people carry around in their minds is incredibly important for project momentum afterwards. So we'll finish this bit with 3 top tips for you guys. So one is about making the time. Often projects don't make the time to asset mine. So set aside in the project plan to review historical work, assign time and people to lead the effort. Obviously, it's not going to do itself. So unless somebody's doing that work, it's not going to get done. The second tip that we would have for you guys is to review all of your assets. So consider your target user, your product, your service, incoming competitor trends. There's knowledge that's kind of hiding behind each of those rocks. And then the last piece we'd really encourage you guys to do is to create a summary and an action plan, which isn't the most exciting part of the process, but it will feel more like an asset if it's summarized and you guys have an action plan coming out of that afterwards.